Halloween is finally here, and when I saw this cute, easy, budget-friendly idea on the internet, I knew that I had to give it a shot. This is She's Making Something, and today I'm making these adorable cheesecloth ghosts for Halloween. The two main things needed to make these ghosts are, of course, cheesecloth, and I got this from the crafting section of the store. I got a huge pack of 15 yards because I'm making a ton of them as centerpieces for this community family event. And then, of course, starch, which is what's going to be used to make them stand up on their own to create that really cute floaty ghost effect. Then the few other things I needed were some wax paper to cover my work surface, a 2-liter bottle plus a plastic bowl to help give my ghost the shape I wanted, plus some floral wire, some clear Scotch tape, not the paper masking tape because the starch won't stick to the clear tape, and some foil to help me shape it just the way I want. So as I mentioned before, I got a lot of cheesecloth because I'm making a lot of ghosts for this community event, but each ghost really only needs about a 3-foot square of cheesecloth. Now this roll is already 3 foot tall, so I just measured to make it 3 feet wide. So now I have my roughly 1 yard square of cheesecloth to use per ghost. I put cardboard down on my table so that I can move the ghosts when I'm done with them and they can dry somewhere else. But I don't want starch to stick to the cardboard or any work surface, so I put down some wax paper because the starch won't stick to that. Then I'm using a 2-liter bottle to give it some height, and then I'm going to use a plastic bowl to give it a rounder head. I've seen other videos where they use balloons or plastic balls, but I have a plastic bowl, and then I'm just going to tape it onto the top of the bottle. So now my cheesecloth will have a rounded top and flow down the sides, but I want little ghosty arms floating out. So I take some floral wire and I'm going to wrap it around my bottle and stick it in place with some clear Scotch tape. I mentioned before that it was important to use the clear tape because the starch will stick to masking, paint, and even duct tape a little bit because they're more papery. So using the clear packing tape or gift wrap tape will make things a lot easier later. Now I made one of my ghosts just like this with his little arms like that, but when I was done the hands were a little too pointy for me, so now I wrap the ends of the wire with some foil to make them a little more rounded. So now that I've got my form all ready to go, the cheesecloth is going to lay on top of it and flow down the sides and over the arms and then flow down to the bottom of the cheesecloth. So how it looks from the top is most important. But now it's time to get my cheesecloth in the starch. And I am not diluting this starch at all. It's going straight from the bottle into the bowl, no water added. And a lot is not needed. You need very little starch for this because the cheesecloth soaks it up really, really easily. And then you just completely dunk it, submerge it, make sure it's saturated, and then wring out all the extra. After it's all wet and soaked, you gotta open it back up again so you can drape it over the form. And this is kind of a pain, but it is easier if the cloth was completely unfolded before I put it in the starch. I did one where I took it straight from the package into the starch and then tried to unfold it while it was wet for the first time, and that was a nightmare. So I suggest unfolding it first before sticking in the starch. But once it's all spread out again, I drape it over the form, and then I take my time to arrange it. The starch does not dry quickly. There's no need to rush or hurry this process. So I made sure the arms were how I wanted. The cloth was tucked into all those nooks to give me just the shape I was looking for. But the important part when working with this is the starch stiffens up better if the cloth is clumped. So those little folds coming down from the bowl are going to be stiffer than the parts that are more spread out. And that's going to help it stand tall. But the most important part is that base around the bottom of the ghost. All that extra cheesecloth is important. You don't want to cut it off. You want it to be all folded and bundled around the bottom, because all those little folds, all those little bunches, that's what's going to be stiff, and that's what's going to help give the ghost a nice base so it can stand up tall all on its own after it's dried. And after I was done arranging him and he was just the way I wanted, I left my little ghost to dry for about 6 to 8 hours. And I made 2 more forms so I could make 3 ghosts at a time because I was making a lot of them. And the items used to make the shape don't have to be recyclables or trash. One of my forms is my giant bottle of olive oil on top of a candle, and those are going back in my pantry when I'm done. After I made the first few, I did notice that the flat bottoms of the bowls gave my ghosts some little flat heads, so I added some foil hats on my last ones to help round out their head a little more. But that's what I meant about the top of the shape being the most important, because that's the most visible part of the ghost when it's done. After they are dry, which I said was about 8 hours or overnight, it was time to set these ghosts free from their bodies. So first, I carefully pry up the base off the wax paper, and then gently lift it off the shape. After a few tries, I learned that the easiest way to loosen the bits and pieces that are stubborn is to gently squeeze that area to loosen it up, and usually that will convince the starch to let go. And there they are. The starch did its job and they're standing on their own, and I just think that is the coolest thing. They look awesome and spooky and perfect how they are, but I'm gonna go one step more and add some cute faces to them for the family event that I made them for. I cut some cute little eyes and mouth shapes out of black construction paper. Felt would work too and would probably last a little longer, but mine will be indoor and don't have to be super durable, so the paper works for me. And I just hot glued them onto the cheesecloth, being extra gentle and careful not to burn my fingers. Oh my goodness, with all their little faces on, they look like a super cute ghost choir all ready to go. I ended up making 9 of them, using only a couple hours of actual work time. Adding in drying time, it took a few days to make 3 batches. But the floating effect is eye-catching and made quite a few people do some double takes to try and figure out this Halloween magic. We paired them with some cute light-up spider jars and some plastic tablecloth spider webs to make a super budget-friendly centerpiece at the event. And I couldn't resist bringing one back home with me to have on my fireplace. This is She's Making Something. Thanks for watching.